Henry, chance, goal! Salah, oh wow! Oh! Aguero! And Ronaldo! What a goal! Cristiano Ronaldo!
Now, moving on, the big game of the week, my Reds, they played Man City. Personally, I think fair result. The first half was a bit different. I know Abdul was telling me that he didn't understand what Liverpool was sort of doing in that first half, but I understood the more conservative sort of approach to that very first half. However, there were parts where it did look a bit sloppy from, I'd say, the 15th minute up until halftime. But then second half, obviously, a bit of controversies there with Milner and the whole tackle. But Salah's goal, Salah and Foden shared man of the match. But Salah's goal, brilliant display there. So in terms of the key moments, Claudio, you say, do you think it was a second yellow?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I think I can see Pep's frustration. It's one of those ones where if it goes the other way, all of Anfield gets up and screams at the same time, and maybe that influences the referee. The reason why I think it was a second yellow, not that it was very malicious.
No, it wasn't very malicious, but it was a fair. It was a challenge. It was a challenge.
He hasn't even really. He's just too slow in that instance, and
Yeah.
he hasn't really tried to turn around and keep up with him. He's clearly just stopped him in his tracks,
Yeah.
which is a yellow card when you do not play the ball at all and you just body check the player. I don't think he even knew what happened in that moment. I think it happened so quick. Milner did not know what happened, but I think it is a yellow card. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, from the start of that game, Man City lined up with, well, on paper, it was with Foden in the middle, but then there was a bit of a switcheroo and pushed him to the left. So I think Pep sort of just knew, oh, you got Millie there, so just use your pace. And then it did prove costly because we were struggling, especially on City's left-hand side, so our right-hand side. And yeah, so Pep obviously picking up the yellow there. Could it have been a bit different if he sort of kept his cool? Because we see managers losing their cool, and once that happens, then the teams just sort of lost morale a bit. So, do you think they could have picked up a victory if they did?
I think you got to put yourself in Pep's shoes, especially what he said after the game. He came out after the game. He said that if it was a City player, he's off the field.
And he did say that, yeah.
Maybe it's a bit of bias from me. It's sort of that Mikel-Pep connection, that sort of I understand Pep's football. I understand. And look, I do have people that I know that are Man City supporters, so I've gotten a better understanding of that club. But I can't decide with Pep there because I've seen with Arsenal players, I've seen it time at time with Man City players, and sometimes with Chelsea players as well, where we do cop the unlucky end of the stick. And sometimes the home ground advantage does come into play, especially when you're playing at Anfield.
Yeah, Anfield's a fortress there.
Was Chelsea versus Liverpool at Anfield as well?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. You're saying the Reece James red card?
The Reece James red card, I feel if that was at Stamford Bridge, he's going to hesitate a little bit to go, okay, you're off. Because you could think about it, and I know this was a couple of weeks back, Reece James' arm didn't move. He's moving his body. And unluckily, he hit his arm there. So, same thing here. James Milner, if he had a City shirt on his back, let's be honest here, he's off the field. And any day of the week, I've seen Arsenal players get booked for less than that. So, I feel, again, Anfield came into play, but at the same time, I kind of agree with how Pep reacted because I myself would react the same on the side of the pitch. So, yeah.
Well, what did you guys make from a City perspective, that end of that first half, you would be thinking they're all over it. So then, was it more so the second half, more so City dropping or just Liverpool gaining? So I'm more so on the side that it was a bit of both. I think that Liverpool obviously went all out in that first half and then obviously taking the lead twice. But I think once City were sort of exposed after that first half, they were sort of struggling, not a lot, they were struggling a little bit of ideas of sort of what to do. Because obviously they play very centrally and then they sort of had to pick things up throughout playing on the sides. And then obviously Joe Cancelo obviously putting a ball in for Foden, nearly getting a goal there. So in terms of that, would you say that who did better in that second half?
I think Liverpool were lucky not to go into halftime behind. I'll be honest with you, and I'll bring up the point again that I mentioned to Martin at halftime during that game. I told him that I feel that Liverpool was sitting back too much, and we saw last week with Chelsea. If you give City the ball, they're going to have it all game. They're probably the best ball controlling team in the league, let alone Europe.
Yeah.
So I said that I feel like if Liverpool can turn it up a notch, press more like they usually do, and attack City, they're going to have chances, and they might even score. So again, Liverpool, I feel were lucky to, let's say, not be 1 or 2 goals behind that first half. But at the same time, you have to credit City for coming back twice at Anfield.
Oh, definitely. No, that was credit to them, and
Like-
I think the draw was deserved in that
Yeah.
sense.
And that Mo Salah goal, that's worthy of winning any game.
Oh, that was unbelievable there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that?
Now, one season wonder, that one. One season wonder, 4 seasons in a row.
I want to ask you about a moment in that game, actually.
Yeah.
The Rodri tackle on Fabinho, right at the end. Liverpool could have won the game. For me, as a defender, I absolutely love that tackle. I thought it was just well played by Rodri. But then I was interested, actually, around Optus Sport. A lot of people criticizing Fabinho, just saying that at that level, maybe taking too long, knocking it soft along the grass. You've got the whole goal to aim at. You lift it there. You got to be finishing that. You can't be getting tackled. All these blah 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 blah. I actually thought it was great work from Rodri. But what do you guys think? Is that should Fabinho? I get he's a holding midfielder, but you got to be finishing that, or was that just brilliant defending? We saw a similar thing actually got brought up that John Stones, I don't know if you remember, cleared it off the line a couple of years ago against Liverpool, whereas it was that far on the line. But this one here, is that just brilliant defending or poor from Fabinho?
Personally, I say brilliant defending, because obviously I don't think holding midfielders are in a position where they have to be reacting like that, especially being that close to the goal. So a lot of people would. I understand the criticism for a Liverpool player being close to the goal and not getting it, but in my opinion, I'm gonna have to say Rodri, outstanding there. He just sort of just jumped in it, cleared it, and it was fair. Like I couldn't. My initial reaction when I saw that was, wow, what a clearance! Like I was like, fair play. It wasn't a, oh no, what happened? What was what Fabinho? What are you doing now? It wasn't that. I think a lot of people have to understand that players in different positions they have a different purpose in the squad, and more so, like you can't expect a holding midfielder to be reacting like Mo Salah if he was from that distance.
Yeah.
Also, I'd put yourself in his shoes. You've got a fan-packed Anfield.
I know.
Like you've got screaming fans that you've blocked that noise out, and all you hear is like that 1 second where the ball just pauses in front of you. And like, any sport, whether it's rugby league, whether it's like I've played basketball, soccer, played it all. And in that moment where everything just freezes around you. And I think that got to him. And I think, again, had it been an attacker, he probably would have snapped out of it and gone and shot the goal. But again, you got to credit Rodri. Like you said, as a defender, always like centre back myself. So you kind of just look at it with awe. And you can't do anything but applaud it. So I think you applaud Rodri, but then again, you're right in front of the goal. Like it can't be that hard.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, we also see Fabinho in other games clearing it off the line. So in that sense, I think it's just the position that he's so used to playing. Just you can't, like, personally, just it's hard to react that quick. Like if it was Mo Salah, you expect him to be in that position and get it. But then if you can't expect him, you can't rely on him for a goal line clearance in those situations. So it can be said either way. But I think it's just more so Rodri, fantastic tackle.
Yeah. I think the one last thing we want to bring it about, well, 2 things is firstly City's need for a striker, and I'd say Liverpool's current defensive deficiencies: 5 goals in 2 games. conceded one against Milan on the week. So it's 6 goals in 3 games. Or if you want to consider the Prem, that's 2.5 goals conceded a game. And we don't know that. That's not the Liverpool we know. So what do you reckon's kind of, who needs what more? Do you reckon that Liverpool need that Man City need that striker? Or do you reckon that Liverpool's defensive woes with Matip and Trent out and Trent's defensive woes as well could come into play as well? So what do you reckon?
Claudio?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? I think when you look at, do I blame the defense of Liverpool for that one? It was really strange to see that they conceded 3 goals to Brentford. Take nothing away from Brentford. They've been brilliant. But
fantastic.
The week before, so they had their full back line, I believe, Liverpool against Brentford. They played the full back line.
Yeah.
They had Van Dijk, Matip. They had Alexander-Arnold on the right. They had Robertson on the left.
Mm-hmm.
The week before, they played Palace and won 3-0. I'm pretty sure it was Palace. They won 3-0. And I remember they had only Van Dijk in that back line. He played alongside, it would have been Konate. Alongside Konate, Tsimikas on the left, Milner on the right.
Yep.
And they won 3-0 and they looked pretty solid. And to me, it was like, interesting. That was without wait till the other 3 came in. They came straight back in and conceded 3 goals to Brentford. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a case of football comes and goes in cycles. I think it's the case of Liverpool as a team when they are dominating, when they are holding possession, when they have the ball and they have you under the pump. That's when you want Robertson on the park. That's when you want Trent Alexander-Arnold, particularly on the park. But when you're up against it and you need to dig your heels in, maybe that's when these other players potentially provide a little bit more. I think Milner probably showed that he's not the man to be right back, particularly against the likes of Foden and the speed that's there in the
Definitely.
But is Alexander-Arnold? He's been phenomenal this season going forward. Is he the defender to kind of dig your heels in and win balls? I don't know. I wouldn't criticize this Liverpool team yet. 5 goals in 2 games, but
one game
they played
one game being against City. It was very entertaining. Like I think after that game, I wasn't as disappointed as to other Liverpool fans, but I was more so like, that's a fair result. And even last week when we played Brentford, my initial reaction was, what a game. As much as I didn't want to like see us concede 3 and draw, or score 3 and draw, but that was probably one of the entertaining, or one of the most, if not a potential entertaining game of the season.
And these guys are human beings. You know, you got to remember these guys are human beings. And when you're away at Brentford and you're up by 1 and then you concede an equalizer and you're up by 1 again and the crowd's bouncing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a new stadium. You can't help but it's the momentum of football. You could put Liverpool up against a Park football team here. And if it's 1-0 with 5 minutes to go, the Park football team is going to have a couple chances. Yeah, it's just the way it goes. It's just the way football goes. So I wouldn't criticize them too much. And they had a quick turnaround with Champions League as well, which they performed brilliantly in Portugal. So you can't criticize them too much. I wouldn't worry.
I must say though, I feel like Brentford have showed us one thing that no other team has shown. I feel like sometimes Liverpool, whoever they come playing against, they try to attack Liverpool as a team. And they try to play as a team against Liverpool rather than a team attacking certain parts of Liverpool. Brentford went and targeted the defensive deficiencies of that team. They went for Trent, they went for Matip that game, and it worked. And Tony did a job on Van Dijk that I haven't seen for a while, to be honest. So Man City, I felt, tried to do that as well. They put Foden on Milner. Okay, there's a defensive weakness. And then they went to try to take on that right side of the play with Bernardo Silva when he's taken on Matip on the other side. So I wouldn't be worried completely, but I also am a firm believer in there is big room for improvement. And you can only play that certain style of play for so long before teams figure you out. And we saw that with the best managers. You see that with Arsene Wenger. You've seen that with Sir Alex Ferguson, who constantly had to change. So I think that it's time for change a little bit. Maybe change of formation, maybe play a back 3. I don't know. They've got to figure something out against the bigger teams because they haven't won against the big teams yet. 1-0 at Chelsea against 10 men. They struggled to break them down. And Chelsea with 10 men still actually managed to get an attack in. So you can say that there. And then Man City held the ball like no other team in the first half and should have had the game, in my opinion, if it wasn't for that second half. So you could put an argument for both sides.
But yeah, no, in summary, I'd say that was probably a fair result. Liverpool getting 2 goals, taking the lead both times, and then City equalising. Foden played brilliantly. Salah, amazing goal, and also assist as well with the Mane goal there. But even that little play there started from the back, played through. So I'd say if I had to put a one-word summary to it, mine would be entertaining.
Yeah. Yes, entertaining, but there are some things that, like for me as a neutral, I was able to point out. So like again, like I mentioned before, City with the striker situation. Like imagine they had a striker, you guys wouldn't have been close.
Interesting point, because then we could also say that like if certain decisions could have changed the game.
Yeah.
Like that red card. If Liverpool were playing with 10 men, then it could have easily gone a bit differently, and we would have been defending for our lives at that point. But it's like it's hard to tell in terms of like games like that. I think it's more so you just have to play on with it and just sort of like it is what it is in that sense, and just move on. Like whatever decisions are, and I don't know. It was hard because when you were saying the whole like 5 goals conceded in 2 weeks, like I'm thinking one of them was against City, and then the other one was just, and we were playing away at Brentford, and they were playing top class.
Yeah, but it's not who you've played and how do I explain it? It's not a matter of who you've played, it's how these goals are going in. It's how these teams are playing against you these last 2-3 weeks that make me think that, okay, maybe Liverpool defensively need to change things up, because 2 weeks in a row in the Premier League, two teams have attacked you guys the same way, and it's worked. They've scored 2 goals and 3 goals. And think of it in that way. If Brentford were Man City last week, maybe it wouldn't have been 3. It would have been 4, 5, or 6. Same with vice versa. If it was Brentford this week, you would have won the game more than likely if you played the way you played in the second half. So I don't think it's how much they've conceded. It's a matter of how these goals have gone in. What do you guys think?
Yeah, and don't forget, you don't just, when you talk about defending, it's not only the back line you're talking about, it's the whole team. And Liverpool last few seasons, you've been looking at Liverpool, which suffocate teams. You don't even get out of your half. So you don't even really get to test the back line. Yeah. But I think all across the park, I said it when Gini Wijnaldum left, I thought he was, in my opinion, when I look at that Liverpool midfield, if there was one player I could sign, it was Gini Wijnaldum. And they lost him. And Thiago hasn't quite been the Thiago. So it's, the more ball you hold, the less opportunity they're going to have to press you. So it's really a number of things. I don't like pinpointing a back line. It could be a lot of things. It could be that they're not pressing from the front as much as they used to. They're not holding enough possession in the other half as much as they used to. I think Brentford had 12, 13, 14 shots against Liverpool as well. So, Liverpool 2 years ago do not give a team like Brentford 14 shots in a game. So let alone score 3 goals. So it's all around the park. When you look at how a team defends, it's all around the park. And when a team's red hot, like City for years didn't have the best defense on paper, but you don't even get the ball. They keep it in your half all game. So you're not going to get a chance. You don't even get it.
Yeah.
So when you look at how a team defends, you got to look at the whole lineup. My worry for Liverpool, and I want to see what you think as a Liverpool fan, is come January, February, the African Cup of Nations starts. Salah, Mane, and I believe Matip is staying. Matip's staying, I believe, but Naby Keita's going to go as well. So it's going to be Keita, Salah, Mane. How do you deal with that?
I think the midfield, we don't. Our midfield has injuries itself. So in terms of that, depending on how Harvey Elliott goes, Thiago, the midfield could sort of be recovered.
The front line, no, though.
No, the front line. Look, as much as I don't want to say it, yeah, I don't. It's a time I don't want to think about too much. Oh, yeah, no, honestly, no Salah, Mane, and those are our goals. So those games, I think, the whole mindset of the attack tactically, things would change a lot.
Yeah. Again, it's the reliance on Salah as well. Don't forget that. I feel like if by January Salah scored 20 goals and had 10 assists, and the next person's at 5 and 3, good luck with him coming back. Like that period's going to be like, unless someone steps up, Harvey Elliott's going to be injured still. Who else do you have? Firmino, Jota, and then Minamino. So yeah,
Look, it's gonna be an interesting point when that time does come. But yeah, no, was there anything else that you guys were thinking of and what wanted to put out?
I'm going for Abdul because I think I know your answer, but Abdul, this one's for you. Salah at the moment, top shelf, taking the mickey out of the Premier League, and he has for quite some time. I refuse to. I keep not picking him on my fantasy team because I think he's going to slow down. He's going to slow down, and I'm getting absolutely taught a lesson in my leagues because I have not picked Mo Salah. But I'm so stubborn like that. I'm sticking without him. So my question for you is: this Mo Salah or prime Hazard?
I'll be honest with you. Up until this week, I probably would have told you prime Hazard.
So this week was the turning point.
It's
We have a little bet of who finishes higher on points, and me captaining Salah and him captaining Ronaldo. It did me wonders.
Yeah. Look, I love Hazard. Like as a player, man, like I remember the days of Alexis Sanchez being one of the best in the league. Hazard, like that 15-16 season, and them going head to head. And I always used to just in awe that goal that Hazard scored against us, where Coquelin was doing like a 360 on the floor and then fell off and scored. Like I remember those moments, but Salah's just turning up game after game after game, and you can't fight that. I feel like if Salah was to leave to Madrid, he'd put in a shift. I know Hazard's been unlucky with injuries, but still he hasn't been that consistent outside of Chelsea. So my answer, like I said, up until this week, I would have told you prime Hazard. But after watching that performance and the goal and the way he's turning Laporte in and out, I'm like, that's it. Yeah.
Well, look, that's a fair point. I am pro Hazard because I'm a Chelsea fan, but it's a fair point. His turnover. He's a winger, but he's a different type of winger. He's more forward, but his turnover in goals and assists is ridiculous. So, Martin, here's my question for you. If Salah keeps going down the path he's going, which it doesn't look like he's slowing down. He's now done it for, 4 seasons now that he's done it consistently. Yeah. If he keeps going, finishes out his Liverpool career, and he's banging in goals like this, maybe has another record-breaking season, would we be able to put him in the same sentence? Potentially, maybe even topple Thierry Henry?
Look, with his current form, 100%. I think so. Yeah, I know it's a big call.
Calm down.
But with his current form, I definitely think so. Because you just said it now. Up until this week.
Yeah, but the levels between Hazard and Henry are two different things.
Yes.
Henry. Sorry, I'm gonna say something. Henry was Salah and Hazard put in one. He was able to score. He was able to assist. He was able to come back and track back. He was able to create. He was able to do everything.
That is true. True. But the reason I say I stand by my point is because there's a Salah going through a contract negotiation, and it's a bit tricky when it's FSG, because the sports group don't tend to pay those big wages. But Salah is, I think, expecting $500,000. Is it $500,000? Something like that. That is crazy.
Yeah, we know a certain club that will happily come over and pay that, and he'll flop over there as well.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's right now, obviously not yet. I'll say that not yet, but in the future, if it's continuous how it is now, I'll definitely be saying that a lot more.
It's a big call. It's the easiest way to get Arsenal fans fired up.
I know, 100%. I love
compare
it.
anyone to Thierry.
You cannot mention the king. No one is on the look. He can get there, but I think there's still 2 or 3 levels before Henry. You've got your Drogbas, you've got your Shearers, you've got your Gerrard, your Lampard. I mean, Lampard did both. You could say Lampard was better than Hazard, and for comparing Hazard to Salah, Salah's not as good as Lampard just yet.
Well, you know what? It's about what are you basing it on? If it's only statistics, then statistics, I think, can only tell us so much. Like Salah, even that question I had before, you said that this week changed your mind. But statistically, Salah was a better player than Hazard years ago. If you just go off statistics, he always has been a better player than Hazard. But it just depends. I'm a football romantic, so for me, when people ask me these questions, I always go, "Oh, look, stats are one thing." But I think when I watch him, I like the way he does this, that. That's how I judge a player. So for me, like Hazard, statistically not the best player, but I love the way, like, there's certain things he could do on a football entertainment wise that maybe other players couldn't do. This is why football is a game of opinions, and we're all wrong at the end of the day, right?
Look,
100%.
I think the one thing you could probably say to that is, it's sort of what you see and what I've noticed in Salah. For example, Aubameyang and Salah were scoring the same amount of goals 2 seasons ago, but Aubameyang was scoring goals. Salah was changing games in a way. I don't know how to, like, does that sort of make sense?
He's got a Ronaldo factor about him. You know, Salah. I remember Salah at Chelsea, Salah at Basel. I remember when Chelsea played Basel in the Champions League, Europa League. I can't remember. Actually, I think it was Champions League. But when we played Basel, and he was a skinny winger, weak, great on the ball, technique, and similar, if you look at Ronaldo in his early days, but then he's become this specimen of a guy. He's a tank. You look at him and take his shirt off.
I know.
He's a beast. Now you can't push him off the ball.
Yeah.
He's become he almost looks slightly like Ronaldo, right? He looks slightly less technical and not as sure on the ball, but every time he gets it, it's goal, goal, goal every time. He's turning into a Ronaldo. I wouldn't be surprised if he becomes more of a number 9 as he goes on in his career, and he's honestly very similar to Cristiano Ronaldo's career trajectory.
Yeah,